I haven't seen it.
All right.
So I just thought
Good
maybe-
evening and welcome to the April 13th meeting for HWMA. I'm going to go ahead and take roll. I have Director Jones is absent. Director Castellano is absent. Director Katie.
Here.
Director Madrone.
Present.
Director Wilson.
Here.
And I'm Meredith Matthews, and I'm here, so we have a quorum. So we will start with the consent calendar. So all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA Board and will be enacted upon by one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a board member or a member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. So we have A, approve a request for bids for organics processing facility floor repair and overlay, and B, approve request for proposal for water quality and landfill gas monitoring.
Yeah, I think the speakers aren't on over here.
Oh,
Yeah.
screen lights. All we have
Remember there
we have
were
screen
some
and
speaker
lights.
things over here. It's been so long now. It's been 3 years.
I
since
have a
I've
little
seen it.
green
Might be
light,
these,
so
yeah.
Yep.
Please do not adjust. Leave at marked places. Oh.
this one on. Are they all supposed to be?
Did you turn your mic on?
I think so. It's green. There's a green light.
Yeah, mine says green. Hi. Robin, you know how to operate this, right?
Maybe? What's going on?
Wanna try it
We
again?
don't have
See if you get that.
speakers. Why
Is
we
this
don't have
better?
Yeah.
Speakers on what?
So
For
they're
the room
coming.
and Humboldt access. So there were were there some things that we needed to push over here?
Let's just do screens.
Those were just lights?
Where did Lisa?
It's working now, thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. All right, so we're on the consent calendar. We're approving requests for bids for organic processing facility, floor repair and overlay, and B, approve request for proposal for water quality and landfill gas monitoring and reporting at Cummings Road landfill. Do we have anybody that wants to pull anything off the consent calendar? Any public wants to make any comment? Okay, can you get a motion?
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion passes. Motion by Director Madrone and second by Director Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. It's time for oral and written communication. This time is provided for people to address the board or submit written communications concerning matters not on this agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and on the time permitted for each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. Does anybody have anything for oral communication? All right.
I've got a green light. So my name is Gary Penning, and I work for Dry Creek Landfill, and I've been on the video calls in the past. You've probably seen my face, but I thought I'd introduce myself and extend an invitation if anybody's in the Medford area and would like to see where your solid waste goes. Please feel free to get a hold of me, and I'll give you a tour. So I'll leave a business card up here with all my contact information. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your business.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Nice to meet you in person. All right, next item on the agenda is to set a special meeting for purpose of receiving and discussing draft fiscal year 2023-24 budget. Director Keller.
Thank you, Vice Chair Matthews. So as the staff report states, staff requests that the board members discuss and set a date and time for a special meeting to be held later this April to receive and discuss the draft budget. Unfortunately, I was unable to prepare the draft budget in time for this meeting due to an illness that I had last week. So I lost pretty much all of last week to that. So unfortunately, I was unable to get that prepared this time. Setting a special meeting in April will allow the board to continue to review, and that will give us ample time to still have the executive advisory committee look at it, make a recommendation if they have any to the board, and bring back the draft budget in May for final approval.
All right, thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better. So there were two dates that I believe were options. It was April 20th and April 27th. I've had word from Director Castellano that April 27th works. April 27th works for me too, as long as we can start it at 6 and not at 5:30. There is another board meeting for some of the directors before that. Anybody have any conflicts or?
The 27th is RCA. That's what you're a part of.
Yeah, so we can,
I would suppose if you started, if we're able to do that, I think council has to be at RCA, don't you? If we can go,
So do
if,
I.
if we can get out of there and come over here at 6, then that would probably work.
great.
I'll probably use one of my just causes to zoom in because I'm going to be at another county meeting out of Eureka. So
No,
I don't
so
think
6
I've used
p.m.
any
on the
yet, have I?
27th?
Does that work for you?
Yes.
All right, do we need to make a motion or can we just set that April 27th at 6 p.m.?
You can go ahead and make a motion. Set
Okay.
it. I will note that it will be at an alternate location. So Eureka City staff just let me know that there is a conflict in the City of Eureka council chambers, but HWMA staff will work with one of our other jurisdictions to find a meeting space.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Did he motion it?
No,
Somebody?
I thought you raised your hand. I thought
Well,
you.
whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. I make a motion, we have a meeting on the 27th at 6 p.m. to review the budget.
I'll second.
All right, we've got Director Cody, is that you? Made a motion and Director Wilson seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, we have a special meeting on April 27th at 6 p.m. at a TBD location. All right, coming up next is review and approve request for proposals for transportation and organics processing services. Going to get a staff report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. First and foremost, I would like to thank Director Duffy for this graphic. This is well beyond my abilities. So this presentation will touch on a few process-related items. We will review the approved organics processing timeline and touch on existing contracts that are in place regarding organic material.
Do you have a microphone? Can you turn it
Yeah,
on?
it's right here.
What page do you start that on?
It's after page 56, I believe.
56. Okay, it was different in the PDF.
No, I'm sorry, that's not it.
I had 70. I think I had 78 in the PDF, but I don't know. Here,
That was the gas monitor.
they're numbered different.
It starts on page
Now
99.
you can hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now
Okay.
you're getting picked up.
What page?
Page 99.
99.
Not really numbered that way, though. What's the title of it?
Is
Not the
review
gas
and approve
monitor.
requests for proposals for transportation and organic processing services. It is pretty far into, but it'll take a minute for everybody to find it.
There it is. Got it.
Some long consent item paperwork
Yeah.
to sift through.
I'll go back that way we can admire this wonderful graphic.
This is all.
Is this one?
Yeah, that's the RFP.
That's the one we're reviewing.
Yeah, his agenda is a little earlier before.
They don't number them down. They number them by the page of item 5. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Alrighty. So this presentation will touch on a few process-related items. We will review the approved organics processing timeline and touch on existing contracts that are in place relating to organic material. We will walk through the proposed procurement process and timeline along with goals and objectives of the RFP. And finally, the board can provide clarification and direction for finalization of the draft RFP. To quickly review where we are on the timeline, several member agencies have approved the amended JPA. Staff anticipates bringing this item to the board for final approval in May. Organics facility modifications are ongoing. The majority of the infrastructure related to the Eureka Recycling Center has been removed, including scales and the baler area. This evening, the board approved moving forward with the first phase of the floor repair project, and the board should anticipate seeing requests for bids for the new roll-up doors and scales in the coming months. And finally, that brings us to the current item, the transportation and organics processing RFP. I would also like to point out that member agency staff has initiated conversations with franchise haulers. HWMA, franchise haulers, and your staff met 2 weeks ago to begin discussions regarding route implementation and potential costs related to the collection of organics material. HWMA does have current obligations related to organic waste, most notably the green waste transportation and processing contracts. This includes tonnage received at the transfer station and direct drop-off by Arcata residents. HWMA also anticipates there may be a decrease in tonnage delivered to Dry Creek landfill due to the organics diversion. Fortunately, HWMA does not have a put or pay provision in our contract, so there will be no penalties expected. These are some of the base assumptions that we used when developing the document. Members will participate and provide flow control of source-separated organic materials. Existing green waste transportation and processing contracts will terminate as scheduled in 2027. Through talks with franchise haulers and member staff, HWMA anticipates receiving between 50 and 200 tons per week during the early implementation stages. Collection services will be a phased-in approach, starting with commercial source-separated food waste and self-haul source-separated food waste. Finally, multifamily and residential mixed food and green waste will be collected. The commencement date of the contract will align with the notice from member agencies that no less than 48 tons per week can be delivered to the organics processing facility. This is the proposed timeline for the RFP process. If the board approves the RFP tonight, it will be released Monday the 17th, and proposals are due back to HWMA by June 2nd. The HWMA Evaluation Committee will evaluate the proposals and make a recommendation at the HWMA regularly scheduled July meeting. The board would then need to approve the final agreement with contract implementation expected in July of 2024. Some of the goals staff had when developing this RFP: to reduce waste to landfill by increasing organics diversion, to secure organics processing services and ensure finished product availability to member agencies at no charge, and to begin to implement an organics processing ecosystem in Humboldt County. Additionally, some key objectives of the RFP are to ensure timely collection and removal of organic material, maximize transportation efficiency, secure competitive pricing with the ability to adapt to market fluctuations, provide sustainable organic material recycling, handling, and processing systems, and ensure all local, state and local regulations are met. Next, we will touch on two key points of the RFP. The initial contract term is for a period of 3 years with the ability to extend this contract in additional 2-year increments. This ensures flexibility and would allow HWMA to renew the contract if in-county infrastructure is still not available at that time. Staff recommends the RFP Evaluation Committee be comprised of HWMA's technical advisory members and 2 members of HWMA staff. The executive director will facilitate the process, but only in a non-voting role. This group will review and score the RFPs and then make a recommendation to the HWMA board. With that, staff recommends that the HWMA board approve the Transportation and Organics Processing Services RFP, subject to desired changes tonight, and include the draft template contract into the RFP once finalized by legal counsel, and approve proposed procurement and timeline steps. And as always, other direction as appropriate.
All right, thank you so much. It's nice to see all of this movement. Very exciting. I'm going to open it up to questions from the board. How about it?
Yeah, I guess I got, the only thing I really have is, to the people that are gonna, that you anticipate hauling that, will that be from local haulers hauling it out, or would it be the people that are receiving it have haulers that would come up and get it? Or you don't know, or you may not know at this point.
Yeah, so we don't really know at this time. Obviously, we anticipate probably some local haulers partnering with out-of-county processing facilities. Out-of-county processing facilities also may have haulers that they know and use. So we could expect to see both, but we don't know exactly at this time, no.
Do they have to have special transportation vehicles to do it?
Yeah, so there are requirements not only in the RFP, but in SB 1383 language on what specifically, especially containers, can haul the organic waste, stuff like that. Yeah.
Is that hard to cut? Are those things, are they with the, that we fought with the trucks, the supply chain issues getting those kinds of items?
Just like anything right now, getting things is difficult, but HWMA staff would expect that if individuals choose to bid on this, that they already have the necessary equipment. Yeah. It would be, I can't speak for the evaluation committee, but it would be, I would assume it would be unlikely that they would recommend an out-of-county processor that couldn't get the material to that facility in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Any questions? Any other questions? All right. So I was reading through this and I'm looking at the evaluation criteria and to see that it's a point system, which is great. I was wondering if we could maybe give a little more points to environmental enhancements. I think that it's something that we're all kind of concerned about. Maybe make cost proposal 35 and environmental enhancements 20. Is that unreasonable?
No, this is obviously in draft form. I'm more than happy to make any changes that the board recommends. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Does anybody want to make a motion? Oh, wait, public comment. Does anybody have any public comment? All right, seeing none, need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the request for proposals for transportation and organics processing services.
And Madam Chair, would this be the appropriate time to designate two people as well as part of the motion?
Sure.
Looks like it's included if we are doing staff recommendation. Is that correct? You're looking for the names now?
We don't need the names.
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah. The executive director will tap two HWMA staff members, and then we'll reach out to member agency staff to see who they want on the technical advisory committee.
Oh, yes. Okay. I do see that there. Great. Thank you.
All right, so Director Katie made a motion. Do I have a second?
I would second the motion.
All right, Director Madrone, second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Vice Chair Matthews, could you add your requested change?
Yes,
to
thank
the
you.
motion?
So I just want to add an addendum to your motion that we switch the maximum evaluation score, perhaps a little bit lower for cost proposal and a little bit higher for environmental enhancements.
Okay.
I like that.
All right.
So can you specify what that is? So do you want to move that from 15 to 20?
I'd like to move that from 15 to 20.
Okay,
and,
so then the total will be 130?
oh no, and move cost proposal down from 40 to 35. So we'll still
Okay,
be.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So do we need to repeat the motion adding?
Yes, please.
All right. So can you make that motion again with the included addendum?
Okay.
Yep.
I make a motion that we add to it as just specified.
I approve that second, yes.
All right, excellent. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm so sorry, could you please repeat the motion so I can get minutes?
Sure. So that was a motion by Director Katie and a second by Director Madrone.
And the motion, correct me if you believe this is the wrong intent, the motion was staff recommendation with the addition, or the revision to the scoring criteria to change the cost proposal from 40% to 35%, increase
Points.
increasing the environmental component from 15 points to 20 points.
Thank you, Council Diamond. I appreciate that. Yes.
As understood, yes.
All right. Lovely. All right. We're moving on to proposed reorganization. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So outlined in the staff report, HWMA regularly assesses its organizational needs when positions are vacant. The most recent example of this is the current account manager position that has remained unfilled for quite some time. When the job was initially created, there were 3 separate recruitment attempts, with each attempt unfortunately being unable to produce a qualified candidate. Additionally, a majority of the administration duties that were removed have either been accomplished through joint efforts with staff or not reassigned at all. Because of this, staff recommends reclassifying the account manager position to the Director of Finance. Staff will also begin evaluating some of the duties that may have fallen outside the scope of the proposed position and either assigning to other staff or developing new staff positions as necessary. Additionally, as a point of clarification in the financial section of the staff report, the annual realized increase in payroll expense is incorrect. The annual increase would actually be $16,409. The number that is in the staff report was placed there in error. So the annual realized increase again in payroll expense for this change would be $16,409.
But that position has been vacant for quite some time, correct? So
that is correct. That is the anticipated increased expense going forward.
Okay.
Obviously, that position has been vacant for quite some time, and we would have no issues having the funds to fill that position immediately.
yeah. So every time. So how are you flying these positions? I want to know what the recruitment process is looking like, and how, if we can help you, or
so I can't fully speak to the previous recruitment processes because I was not responsible for them. But what I will say is, prior to our former executive director, we would not only post them on things like Monster, Indeed, we would fly them in trade magazines or trade blogs or posts, things like that. Obviously, locally, we use all the local news outlets as well. I would probably be remiss without saying that we probably didn't do as good a job, at least on the second and third attempts. I know the first attempt that was made for the account manager position, quite a bit of effort went into it and quite a bit of money as well went into it. But traditionally, we do a fairly decent job of flying posts.
Sure. Now, this was a position that existed, and then we changed it to the accounting manager, and it was vacant. So now we want to move it back to the Director of Finance.
Yeah, and the rationale for moving it back to the director of finance is when it was moved from the director of administrative services and finance, a lot of duties were pulled out of it, and the pay was reduced.
Sure.
Those duties have not been reassigned to staff. Most of those duties have been taken up by myself or the other directors. Our programs analysts have stepped up and helped a little bit as well. But it's very, very clear that those duties should belong back under the umbrella of that director position.
Sure. So have you done any salary surveys or whatnot? How did you come up with, is this kind of the salary range that the position had before, or?
Yeah, so we can take a look at adjustments to salary with the annual budget, but as of right now, to reclassify the position without having to pass a completely new salary schedule, I placed it back with the other director heads. Yeah.
Okay.
Eric, may I? So I do want to add that in 2020, we did a pretty extensive salary survey for a number of positions within HWMA, and that was when I was your previous executive director. And one of the positions that we looked at was the director of finance specifically, given the scope of what was being handled. So at that time, the board did approve the new salary pay plan, as well as the range for the position itself. So it is commensurate with the director of operations and the director of environmental health and safety. And I believe that it is still pretty competitive with what you're going to see in the general range right now. If there are difficulties in securing somebody, then I would suggest that you kind of look at it again as a whole for those equivalent positions.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I've done a salary survey at my other job, and so I kind of have an idea of what directors of finances are being paid. It looks reasonable, but definitely if you're having trouble, I think that we can give you a little wiggle room if necessary, for sure. I know and so do you anticipate, like, with all the new duties with SB 1383, this job is going to have a lot more. I mean, this is going to be a pretty big undertaking. Yeah.
Yeah, their role is obviously going to increase, and obviously, like we've talked at previous meetings, unfreezing and expanding the current programs analyst position that's frozen is going to be recommended in the future. And like I said, staff will continue to assess all the duties that are required and develop recommendations for additional staff if needed.
Yeah, I just want to encourage you to be a little more generous if that's what needs to happen. Anybody else have any comments?
Just kind of along the lines of what you're saying, looking at the difference between what the director of finance was getting, it's only about $10,000 difference. And you said it was 2020 that we did the study.
That's
And
correct.
Typically, what do you do those about every 5 years?
That was the first time that it had been done.
Pardon me?
That was the first time it had been done within the organization.
For a long time.
So it had been a while.
But I'm just saying I know that we went through and had a lot of issues. We lost our finance director, was elected to the county position.
Mm-hmm.
And the finance people are hard to come by. So I think that's kind of going along with Director Matthews. We may need to do something there, which shouldn't be too hard to adjust. I don't know if you have to do that to all the rest of the directors when you do that too. So but I'm open to that. That's all I have.
All right. Do we have any public comment? All right. Seeing none, I need a motion, please.
I would make a motion that we approve staff recommendations, including reviewing and approving the revised organizational chart and pay plan effective April 13th, 2023, and including the attached job description for Director of Finance.
I second.
All right. We had a motion by Director Madrone and a second by Director Katie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes. All right, we're chugging right along. Do we have any board member reports?
I have a couple questions. I don't expect any answers today because it's not agendized, but, Caltrans has got the Clean California program going, and I imagine there's some really great data being developed there around the cost of cleaning up all the garbage that doesn't make it into our system because people can't afford to get it into our system, or it's being dumped on the highways and we're cleaning it up, and we're only getting 10% of what's being dumped because it's down the hill and you can't get it. I, for a long time, have thought that it'd be really nice if it didn't cost anything to dump, and I know that may or may not be financially feasible, but I think we spend a lot more money cleaning up and the environmental, we're not even putting a price tag on the environmental stuff. But anyway, I'm just thinking right now, maybe we could contact Clean California, Julie Peterson, I think it is, and just say, so what's it costing for this, 1 year effort by Caltrans or 2 year effort? It would be a data point, and I've asked Tom Matson I asked Julie at Caltrans if she was aware of any counties that don't charge for dumping. And she did provide me with one county. I forget who it was, but there's only one that does that. Do you know which county that was? Was it Sonoma or no?
I believe it was Trinity.
Trinity.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because they had a population of
So small.
like less than 14,000 people.
Yeah.
If I can give you
Please.
just a little food for
Background.
thought.
I'm sure you've thought about all this.
What you're looking at is going to be a collection cost. So each of the cities, if you really wanted to get kind of a handle on what that would look like, each of the cities would need to go through a process where they are looking solely at their collection cost related to their contracts. Each contract is different, so I'm not even going to hazard to guess what it is. HWMA is only picking up and managing the materials from our member entities.
Right.
You sitting right here. Your budget is a little over $14 million, and that is just the transportation and disposal of that solid waste. Add to that your collection cost, and you'll get a pretty good sense of what it would cost, the county. Obviously, Fortuna would need to be accounted for, as well as Trinidad, and you'd also have to address the other contract, state, federal, and some of the tribal lands, as well as figure out how you would account to make it all equitable in that sense. And so you'd have to figure out, you still have to dispose of that material. It's still going to have to get transported to a landfill, so there's a cost, and it's still going to have to be disposed. And you're still going to have to find a way in which to fund all the different programs, so your hazardous waste, your recycling, and some of the other things like this. So it's you can use some of the numbers that we use in the course of the budget, and then identify, well, what is going to be the funding source. There could be taking a look at, is there going to be a parcel fee that would be collected for each parcel, in which I would say it's not free.
No.
Right? There'd be no charge then. Or some other funding mechanism in which to pay for the cost for the transportation disposal and other related items like that. So you do actually have some numbers that you could look at, but you would have to identify where your revenue source is going to come from.
Certainly. So you're talking like in the order of 20 million cost, kind of. Or
I would argue significantly higher, because you
Even
have
that,
to
yeah.
collect the collection cost as well,
Yeah.
because your haulers aren't going to do it for free.
And right now, those costs are split amongst all the entities that are part of it.
Those costs for collection is run by the contract. City of Arcata's contract is different than the City of Ferndale, which is different than Rio Dell. So they're not combined. It is a singular cost to each jurisdiction. The county, I don't remember if you have 11 or 9 contracts. You did some consolidation, so I just don't remember.
Yeah.
So each of one of those contracts, and then you'd also have to factor in, again, Fortuna and Trinidad.
Yeah, certainly not an easy type of thing to do. I recognize that from the get-go. I do remember a period back in the 70s where the dumping was so horrendous. You probably remember Pequon, where there was the slope that was the regular dump, and they would just ignite it every year and burn up the tires and everything and keep dumping. And I think the county spent several million cleaning that site up and fencing it off and doing various things there. And then for a while, the transfer stations were free. I don't remember how long that lasted, but for several years, it was free dumping at the transfer stations. And then eventually we got into the systems we have now, and costs have gone up, and finding a place to even take this stuff has gotten far more complicated and expensive and all that. But it's just, I wish there was a way to do it, or a way to do it for people, like an equity program.
Director
Because there are many
Madrone?
people that can't afford to do it. And
So I want to add just a little piece.
yeah, please.
You had Cummings Road landfill,
Yep.
you had Table Bluff,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a number of other smaller landfills.
So we were dumping locally, yeah.
It was all local, so you weren't incurring the transportation charges. And disposal, I believe, for the Cummings Road landfill around 1998, I want to say it was about $50 a ton. So the scale was totally different as well, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it wasn't having to be transported
Yeah,
as
good
far.
point. Very
So
good
I just
point.
wanted to, yeah.
Yeah,
You
please.
know, the other point is that that was also before Proposition 218 and 62, and so ratepayers could choose to round up kind of thing, but now you've got all of the noticing requirements, and if there's going to be a direct subsidy from a jurisdiction for a non-rate paying entity, it's going to have to be approved. It's not something, unless it's paid for through general fund
Yeah.
type of money.
Right, yeah, and we obviously can't afford it, and I'm certainly not suggesting that our transfer partners are in any way supposed to take up this cost. I'm really just trying to figure out, especially for people that can't afford it, could there be a system whereby we could help them get that stuff to the dump and not pay a fortune because they already don't have the money, and to a large degree, that's why it's building up. It's also other reasons, but. And I get calls all the time, hey, can you get us a dumpster? We've got neighbors ready to help a particular person or a neighborhood or whatever it might be. And this Clean California program's been a godsend, because things were just getting out of control. And they will again when this ends. We're going to see a tremendous amount of illegal dumping. And while it's really expensive to do it for free, I think it's far more expensive to not allow some system to be able to get it done. But I don't know what that system is. So I just thank you for bearing with me for the conversation.
Director Madrone, is that something that you would like us to agendize for a later board meeting so we can?
I think so. It's not an urgent matter by any means. I think Eric's got a lot on his plate right now, but Jill clearly brings a lot of, background and grounding from having been through these discussions for years. So yes, something in the future. It doesn't have to be the next meeting or anything like that.
I will add to that I lived in Orleans for 10 years, so I definitely know
Pequot.
about dumping over hills and whatnot. So yeah.
And I know this isn't agendized, but
Yeah.
just as a recent comment, after the earthquake, we had dumpsters brought into the city of Rio Dell.
Right.
And one of the things, because of the requirements of OES, we couldn't ask the people that came into those dumpsters where they came from or what they were doing. But the amount of trash that came into those dumpsters, I sat there one day, we just driving down Main Street, and we saw a guy pull up with a U-Haul truck and completely full and would put it into a dumpster. They would fill those dumpsters, that you'd dump them one day and they'd be filled the next.
Yeah.
And when we finally cut it off, I think the number that we had was around $100 and some odd $1,000 that we had for that limited period of time. That people came from everywhere because it was, like you said, they had nowhere else to dump it. So there's a freebie on the main street of Rio Dell. And so it's something you want to consider.
Yeah. And I guess in a way, just one final thought, the whole Clean California program shows that there was this building need. And the state stepped in, but it's short-term funding. So it'd be really nice if the state were to recognize this is a long-term issue. And thank you for the Clean California, but how about Clean California for 100 years, or whatever it might be. Anyway, enough of my soapbox on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any other board members that have any reports?
No.
All right. So next is a standing item executive director report.
I have nothing to report at this time. Thank you, Vice Chair.
All right. So it looks like we are going to move into closed session.
Per Government Code 54957.
Oh, sorry. Per Government Code 54957. So
Nice meeting you all.
it was
Thanks
nice
for
meeting
coming
you too.
up.
Take care.
And there goes the
Are
Zoom.
we able to do closed session here?
Yep, a couple people have to leave.
Okay. The room we used to use.
Council Diamond, do we come back after this and
We have to
adjourn the
report
meeting?
out.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing to report. I believe you're doing good.
No,
Are you mayor?